So has anybody been held accountable?
To my knowledge,
names been named. So, it was your responsibility to make sure that reservoir was filled up. It was your responsibility to make sure that the Lockman fire was put out, and you didn't pull fire. I mean, who pulled the fire crews from the Lockman fire? It wasn't the crews themselves, right? They were ordered away from that fire, correct?
the bigger question is this is a leadership failure that goes all the way to the top, not just at Chief Garcia's feet. So there should be a question is that if I'm with Chief Butler and he's my superior, I am letting him know what my actions are. And
so do we know where the buck stops on that one?
We do not know. We do not know where the buck stops.
So why don't we know? Has anybody been fired? Has anybody been held accountable? Has anybody resigned from this? The title of this hearing is 1 year after disaster, experts weigh in on the Palisades Fire. I want to thank all the witnesses for taking the time to appear and for taking the time to prepare your testimony. I just want to start out with an article that I'd asked to be entered into the record without objection, written by Congressman Tom McClintock of California. In this letter, he states that prior to 1800, on average, California had 4.5 million acres of land burned annually. 4.5 million acres. By the end of the 20th century, prior to the year 2000, by proper land management, they had reduced that to, on average, about 250,000 acres. So from 4.5 million to 250,000 because of good leadership, good governmental policies. Unfortunately, in 2020, California saw 4.3 million acres burn again, and between the years 2019 and 2023, it averaged 1.5 million acres. Didn't have to happen. It's a failure of leadership. A lot of people have asked, so why is PSI, Permanent Subcommittee Investigation, why are you investigating the Palisades Fire? Well, the story really starts with Senator Scott, who was a governor of a state and had to deal with a number of natural disasters, primarily hurricanes, was made aware of the after of the Palisades Fire, how things just weren't being built. And so he went, as part of a trip, I guess, to Australia. He came back into the States and into Los Angeles. And so he toured that, found out this is something that really needs to be investigated because, let's face it, the federal government's going to be called upon to probably provide funding for disaster relief. And I think it's very appropriate for this subcommittee to find out where prior dollars went. How was California, how have they used that? What haven't they done? Well, obviously, I think all the testimony here will be say this is something that never should have gotten out of control. These disasters should not have been as enormous as they actually were. So again, what I think this committee needs to do is we need to investigate what happened before, what happened during, what happened after. And I don't think we're going to cover all those topics in testimony today, but I think the before and after, before and during, I think we'll cover quite well. The other reason that Senator Scott asked to do this investigation under PSI is we have subpoena authority, and we will use it if we have to. Now, we've gotten, according to staff, 234,000 pages of documents. We appreciate. Some of them not particularly relevant. I mean, we're used to getting document dumps here. So we'll start targeting our requests, and this is just to put everybody on notice. We intend to investigate this thoroughly. We expect transparency, and if necessary, we will compel testimony and compel document production. Based on Mr. Hawkins' testimony, you'd kind of think that the federal government is the primary one responsible for preventing disasters and making sure that everything goes well afterwards. I think it has it completely backwards. I think the hierarchy is a local response first, supported by the state, and the federal government really comes in. It does provide funding after the fact. And one of the reasons we're holding these hearings is we're going to be asked to probably spend billions that never should have been required to be spent had the state and local officials done their job. I started out with Tom McClintock's op-ed there where he talks about California prior to the 1800s, on average burning about 4.5 million acres, had reduced that 250,000 acres by the year 2000. Now it's back up there almost as high as it was prior to the 1800s. So again, I want to focus on the before and the during Probably won't talk a whole lot about the after. That's probably for a different hearing. But, both chiefs, I don't think even in your written testimony you really addressed the fact that the reservoirs weren't filled, that the brush and the combustibles weren't managed, weren't taken care of. So, we'll start with you, Chief Butler. Can you talk, what do you know about what happened with the reservoirs and why you didn't have, proper water resources?
Excellent question.
Make sure is your mic on?
Sorry about that. Excellent question. In my experience, being an incident commander, anytime there is a water infrastructure issue, the first and foremost thing I do is ensure that the systems that I'm going to be in charge of are operating, number one. That involves engaged with all the department agencies involved in the city. I've had incidents where water mains were going to be shut off. And my expectation was to city government as an incident commander is that if you're going to shut it off, you shall have 15 water trucks standing by. And then that shut off will not last more than 36 hours. So the infrastructure will amplify the issues. Weaknesses will amplify the issues.
But let's talk specifically. In Palisades, yes, there were 2 reservoirs. They were both empty, correct? And they were empty for how long?
The San Ynez Reservoir was empty, I believe, for about 11 months. And
that the one that they were repairing the cover?
The cover on it was being repaired, and it was one of the primary helicopter filling reservoirs that we use in the city.
And they had another reservoir that could have been available that also was empty.
I wasn't familiar. I think it's Chautauqua, but to your point, infrastructure like that should have water in it, pressure in it, and ready to go.
Chief Crawford, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, thank you. The part of this is understanding that this was what I call as a trigger point. And this is as soon as we get that predictive, that particularly dangerous situation, we get a red flag alert, this should be requiring triggered conversations of all of the agencies combined. We've got fire, we have law, and the Department of Water and Power. If those conversations are the things that need to take place. So if you have a reservoir sitting open for 11 months, it gets discussed prior to the water before a fire starts to happen, before the wind blows. To Chief Butler's point, this allows for a backup potential for plan to be able to have water tenders and those particular things on standby. The bigger question I'd like to bring up here is, why are those trigger points not being discussed at the top of the leadership of the LAFD and across the spectrum of all the other agencies? And that's really where this lies. So if you have a reservoir sitting open for 11 months, this cannot be missed anymore. And so the solution that I kind of see in this is—
So again, who missed it? Again,
it was missed on multiple fronts. It was missed by the Department of Water themselves by not being able to state that they have reservoirs empty. It was missed by the fire department by not asking the questions, are all systems online? It was missed by the Southern California Edison. All of the utility companies should be coming together, having this conversation on one large conference call.
So has anybody been held accountable?
To my knowledge,
names been named. It was your responsibility to make sure that reservoir was filled up. It was your responsibility to make sure that the Lockman fire was put out, and you didn't pull fire. I mean, who pulled the fire crews from the Lockman fire? It wasn't the crews themselves, right? They were ordered away from that fire, correct?
So to finish that portion of the question is, yes, they were pulled away from the fire. They were ordered to roll their hoses up.
And who pulled them away?
So there was a battalion chief in charge.
Who's that?
His name is Mario Garcia. Chief Garcia, the question I like to add or to bring up as a bigger point is for a battalion chief with his experience level to roll up the hose and leave. The bigger question is, this is a leadership failure that goes all the way to the top, not just at Chief Garcia's feet. So there should be a question is that if I'm with Chief Butler and he's my superior, I am letting him know what my actions are. And
so do we know where the buck stops on that one?
We do not know. We do not know where the buck stops.
So why don't we know?
We have to ask those right questions exactly. Who is on duty and who is that superior officer of Chief Garcia, and then the superior officer of that goes above that. That's where the buck stops, because you need to have those people.
So has anybody been fired? Has anybody been held accountable? Has anybody resigned from this?
No.
Chief Butler.
To your point, I think that's one of my closing pieces, is that you can't have a disaster, the most costliest in history of the world, of scale like this and not anybody get fired. My expectation is when I take command, that I'll be relieved of command if something were to go wrong.
So after action reports were doctored, correct?
That's correct.
Do we know who doctored them? Do we know who directed the fact that they pulled out information that wasn't particularly flattering for political leaders?
The record shows that the department staff internally had created their own preferred narrative. And so I believe a committee like this can go forward and say, okay, we want to know who specifically was
So
involved.
the reasons I'm asking these questions is not necessarily that you have the answers. The reason I'm asking these questions is these are the questions we will be asking and that we will be demanding answers to. Because I think the people of California, the Palisades, and even I want to talk about the Eden fire next. I'm running out of time. They need to understand this, and because I think you both made very important points for testimony that if you don't have an honest after-action report, the failures will continue. And there will be more disasters and more lives lost, more property damage and stuff. So again, these are the kinds of questions this investigation has to get to the bottom of. We need to find out who made these disastrous decisions or lack of decisions. You know, who failed California by the lack of action or overt actions.